Welcome to the InnoGuide Podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. In this episode, number 48, we'll be sharing part 1 of The Innovation Mindset by Lorraine Marchand. Introduction. How sweet it is, the spark of a great idea. Let me take you back to a moment that really set the stage for everything I want to share in this book. Picture me standing in front of 96 executives from a Fortune 100 pharmaceutical company in a dimly lit conference room. Right after the morning break, most of them were glued to their phones, not exactly brimming with curiosity or excitement. Their CEO had brought them together to spark a culture of innovation, a waterfall of fresh ideas that would start with him and cascade down through the ranks. My job? To show them what that would look like and how to get there. I kicked things off by asking everyone to rate their curiosity on a scale of 1 to 10. Most hovered around a 4 or 5. No one claimed to be a 10. So not a particularly curious bunch. But then I asked them to think back to when they were 12 or 13. What were they dreaming about? What did they do in their free time? Suddenly, the room shifted. People started sharing stories. One wanted to be a fireman, another remembered building robots, and a woman shared how losing her mother to breast cancer inspired her in cancer research. The energy changed. People put down their phones and started to engage. I shared my own story, too. My father, Garland Hudson, was an inventor and entrepreneur. He taught my brother and me to look at problems and come up with at least 3 solutions, defending the pros and cons of each. One summer, he took each of us to Hot Shop's cafeteria in Wheaton, Maryland, and gave us a mission: figure out how to speed up table cleanup. We observed, took notes, and realized the main culprit was the mess from sugar packets. Guided by Dad, we brainstormed solutions, talked to the manager and waitresses, and eventually prototyped a small cube-shaped receptacle, the sugar cube, that held both sugar packets and their wrappers and even displayed ads. We pitched it to the manager and ended up in several stores. This was my first taste of innovation, and it stuck with me. The innovation mindset. What I wanted those executives to see, and what I want you to see, is that innovation starts with a mindset. It's about being curious, passionate, and willing to solve problems. I call this the innovation mindset. It's not just about having ideas, but about having the right attitude, welcoming change, asking questions, and focusing on solutions that meet real customer needs. To help the group practice, I gave them a hands-on exercise. Each table got a problem to solve and a pile of gadgets. Think Legos for adults. They had to combine, subtract, and reimagine the pieces to come up with new solutions. Suddenly, people were collaborating. The lights came up, the phones went face down, and that's the power of engaging the innovation mindset. So what is innovation, really? Let's clear up some confusion. Invention is about discovering something new, while innovation is about bringing that discovery to market and making an impact. Innovation can be incremental, small improvements like adding a sleep aid to Tylenol or making razors with more blades, or breakthrough, big leaps like Dyson's bagless vacuum or a new business model that changes how a company operates. It can be disruptive, game changers that upend entire industries like Uber, Airbnb, or Netflix. But not all innovation is created equal. Sometimes people fall into the field of dreams trap, building something cool and hoping customers will come. Take 3M's Post-it notes. The adhesive was invented years before anyone figured out what to do with it. Or there's serendipity, like Rogaine, which was meant for high blood pressure but ended up treating baldness. These stories are fun, but they're rare and unpredictable. The most reliable path to innovation is problem solving. Take Willis Carrier, who invented air conditioning by solving a specific problem in a printing plant. Or my own sugar cube, born from observing a real issue and working through solutions with input from the people affected. The 8 Laws of Innovation. Throughout this book, I'll walk you through the process I've developed, which I call the Laws of Innovation. Here's a quick preview. A successful innovation must offer a solution, start with a real problem. One great innovation starts with at least 3 good ideas. Explore options. Innovators are dreamers, but also realists. Keep it simple, focus on your minimum viable product. 100 customers can't be wrong. Get feedback from 100 real users. Follow the 3P law. Pivot at any point in the process. Be ready to change course. A successful innovation flows from a sound business model and plan. Write it down. The odds are against you, but you can improve them. De-risk your idea. And there is no innovation without persuasion. Your pitch matters. You'll find case studies, tools, and templates to help you put these laws into practice, plus stories from real innovators. Case study: clinical trials innovation. Let me give you a concrete example. At a large pharmaceutical company, we were losing millions because clinical trials weren't finishing on time. After digging in, we realized the main issue was slow patient recruitment, and the process was based more on relationships than data. We assembled a team, gathered input, and developed a suite of data-driven tools to help teams choose better study sites and forecast completion more accurately. The results? A major diabetes study finished 9 months early, and a rheumatoid arthritis study wrapped up 3 months ahead of schedule. The new approach became standard practice, and we won the company's Innovation Award. But more important than the award was the mindset we brought to the challenge: curiosity, collaboration, and a relentless focus on solving the real problem. Chapter takeaways. Here's what I hope you'll remember. Make problem solving a habit and reward it. Find your sugar packet, a problem you care about. Put the customer first. Replace failure with pivot. Learn and adapt. The best innovations solve real problems for real people. Enjoy the journey. Innovation should energize you. Whether you're 16 or 60, it's never too late to start. Your time to innovate is now. Chapter 1. The First Law of Innovation. A successful innovation must solve a problem. Let me start with a story from my own childhood, because sometimes the best lessons come from the most ordinary moments. It was Easter Sunday in the late 70s. My family was preparing for our annual Hudson family Easter egg hunt. The only problem? The grass was way too long. My dad had forgotten to fill the lawnmower with gas. To make matters worse, it was a Sunday in Maryland where blue laws meant gas stations were closed. We had a problem on our hands, and my dad, ever the inventor, turned it into a teachable moment. Instead of panicking, Dad asked us to define the problem. Was it really that we had no gas, or just that we didn't have gas in the right place? That's when we realized my mom's car, always half full, was sitting in the driveway. With a little ingenuity and a turkey baster, we siphoned gas from her Chevy into the mower. It was slow going, so Dad improvised a better pump from spare parts in the shed. We got the job done, the egg hunt went off without a hitch, and I learned a lesson I've carried with me ever since. Innovation starts with understanding the real problem, not just jumping to solutions. The power of inquiry. This story is more than just a family anecdote. It's a perfect illustration of the first law of innovation. A successful innovation must solve a real problem. The best innovators are relentless questioners. They don't just accept the first answer or the most obvious solution. They dig in, observe, and ask, what's really going on here? It's about inquiry, discipline, and resisting the urge to leap straight to action. There's a quote, often wrongly attributed to Einstein: "If I had 60 minutes to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution." Whether or not Einstein said it, the wisdom still holds true. The more time you spend understanding the problem, the better your solution will be. Steve Jobs once described the computer as a bicycle for the mind, a tool that speeds up our thinking and helps us get to better answers faster. That's what a good problem-solving process does for innovation. Constraints as catalysts. Constraints like our closed gas stations can actually improve problem-solving. The COVID-19 pandemic is a dramatic large-scale example. The crisis forced innovators to move fast and work with limited resources, leading to breakthroughs like vaccine development. Before COVID, only 3 companies made vaccine. The pandemic spurred a dozen companies, including newcomers like Moderna and BioNTech, to develop and launch vaccines at record speed. Ventilator shortages. Tesla and Medtronic teamed up to create mobile battery-operated ventilators for outpatient use. Remote work and learning. Zoom became a household name as video conferencing replaced in-person meetings and classes. Telehealth. Companies like Teladoc saw explosive growth as people turned to online medical care. Each of these innovations started with a clear, urgent problem and was accelerated by constraints. But beware, constraints only help if you're solving the right problem. Too often, companies rush to solutions without truly understanding what needs fixing. The danger of solution in search of a problem. I've seen firsthand how easy it is to get excited about a new technology and try to force it into the market. Early in my career, a colleague and I tried to commercialize a diagnostic test for oxidative stress. The technology was impressive, but we never nailed down a specific problem it solved for doctors or patients. Without a clear problem statement, the product never took off. This is a classic mistake, working backward from a solution rather than forward from a problem. And it's not just us. In a survey of executives from around the world, 85% admitted their companies were bad at diagnosing problems, and 87% said this led to serious financial consequences. Too many organizations fall into the ready, fire, aim trap, jumping to action before they've truly defined the problem. How to identify the right problem? So how do you avoid this? Start by asking the right questions. When and where was the problem first observed? Get out and see it in its natural environment. How often does it happen? A real problem recurs. How significant is it? Who's affected? And what's the cost? What assumptions are you making? Challenge them. Can you break the problem down into parts like Elon Musk did with the electric car batteries? He deconstructed the problem and found new, cheaper ways to build them. Is the problem real and worth solving? Make sure your target audience cares. 4 techniques for problem identification. Here are some practical approaches. 1. Ask better questions. In one brainstorming session, my team was stuck generating solutions that went nowhere. I had everyone stop and just write down questions about the problem. The energy shifted and we started seeing the issue from new angles, especially from the customer's perspective. 2. Reframe the problem. Look at the problem through different stakeholders' eyes. For example, instead of just reducing wait times at a theater, some venues entertain people in line, making the wait enjoyable. Sometimes the problem isn't the wait, it's the boredom. 3. Use analogies. Bill Gates loved this approach. Ask who has solved a similar problem and what can we learn from them. The digital twin concept in manufacturing borrowed from NASA's space missions. It's now used to manage everything from supply chains to smart buildings. 4. Tear the problem apart. First principles. Elon Musk's favorite. Break the problem down to its basics. Challenge every assumption and build new solutions from scratch. Always keep the customer in mind. Case study. COVID-19 vaccines. The development of COVID-19 vaccines is a masterclass in problem-driven innovation. When the pandemic hit, the accepted wisdom was that vaccines take years to develop. But companies like BioNTech, Pfizer, and Moderna asked, why does it have to take so long? They broke the process into parts, challenged every step, and leveraged new technology and government support to deliver safe, effective vaccines in record time. It's a testament to what's possible when you start with the right questions and a clear problem. Innovator in focus, Phil McKinney. Phil McKinney, former CTO of Hewlett-Packard and now CEO of Cable Labs, is a great example of a problem-focused innovator. His first big invention, the thumb scan, is the technology behind the fingerprint scanners we use everywhere today. Not every project was a hit. HP's touchpad tablet flopped, but McKinney learned that past success doesn't guarantee future wins. His advice? Ask killer questions every day, like, how can you make a customer's life easier? Why should they choose your product? What do they dislike about your company? Never stop questioning. Putting the first law into action. So where do you find the problems worth solving? Talk to your CFO about cost challenges, your call center manager about customer pain points, or your distribution team about supply chain headaches. Observe, ask questions, gather data, and write everything down. Test your assumptions, develop multiple solutions. Don't be afraid to pivot if something isn't working. Remember, the innovation mindset starts with curiosity and a willingness to dig deep. Find problems that matter to you and your customers, and you'll be on your way to meaningful, successful innovation. In short, the first law of innovation is simple but powerful. A successful innovation must solve a real problem. Start with inquiry, embrace constraints, and ask better questions, and always keep the customer at the center. That's how you lay the foundation for innovation that matters. Chapter 2. It's the Law. One great innovation starts with at least 3 good ideas. Here's how to find them. Let me set the scene. I'm running a workshop for a team of smart, hardworking engineers and account leaders at a major medical device component manufacturer. The morning's brainstorming session has been a bit lackluster, and Randy, the division's general manager, was getting anxious. He wanted big ideas that would move the needle for the business, and he wasn't seeing them yet. He even offered to give the team a pep talk, but I knew what they really needed was a shift in perspective, not just a motivational speech. The group had been eager to jump into technical solutions, but they hadn't fully grasped the real problems that customers, people with diabetes, were facing. So after lunch, I decided to reframe our approach. I introduced my storytelling methodology, which centers on understanding the customer's journey. I brought in Jan, a diabetes nurse, educator, and mom to a daughter with diabetes, to share real patient stories. This was the game changer. Suddenly, the engineers saw their work through the eyes of the end user. They learned about the challenges of reading a glucose meter at night, the frustration of glucose patches tearing, and the anxiety parents feel when sending their kids to school with diabetes. The energy in the room shifted. We broke into teams, mapped out the patient journey, and identified problems at every stage. By the end of the day, the group was buzzing with ideas and eager to keep working, even after hours. The next morning, we brainstormed solutions focusing on matching each problem up to a user-centered fix. For the hard-to-read glucose meter, the team came up with a design featuring an automatic backlight. For the fragile glucose patch, they designed a protective cap and even added waterproof superhero stickers for kids. When Randy returned, he was blown away by the creativity and relevance of the ideas. Within a month, these concepts were already moving into prototype testing and customer satisfaction scores were on the rise. What's the lesson here? The creative process can't succeed without the customer's perspective. When it comes to generating great innovations, you need more than one idea. You need at least 3 solid options to explore, test, and refine. Where do new ideas come from? People often think inspiration just strikes out of the blue, but in organizations, we can't wait for a muse. The innovative companies have systems and processes for generating ideas. Here's a few methods I use and recommend. 1. Big idea vignettes. Think of these as single frames in a storyboard. You sketch out what the user experience might look like, focusing on the big picture rather than specific features. For example, our customer needs to book the best affordable flight at the last minute is a big idea, while flight status updates in real time is a feature. The goal is to rapidly generate a wide range of possible solutions, always keeping the end user at the center. 2. Storyboards. Storyboarding helps everyone intuitively understand how an idea fits into the user's world. You create a visual narrative like a comic strip showing the user's journey, the challenges they face, and how your solution helps. In our diabetes example, we mapped out the experience of a child being diagnosed and the daily realities of managing the disease. 3. User experience roadmaps. This method helps you explore what you want users to be able to do in the short and long term. You write statements like, our user will be able to ... and map out the journey from immediate needs to future possibilities. This is especially helpful for setting up your minimum viable product. The best process for generating ideas. Start by defining your purpose, then brainstorm freely. No critics, no bad ideas, just lots of possibilities. Record everything in full view, resist getting attached to any one idea, and after a while, cluster and refine the most promising concepts, recognizing everyone's contributions and keeping the energy positive. Creativity and brainstorming. Creativity isn't just for artists and musicians, it's at the heart of innovation. Unfortunately, as we grow up, our creativity often gets stifled by structure and a focus on logic. That's why group brainstorming is so powerful. It unlocks the creativity we all have, especially when we bring together people from different backgrounds and functions. Brainstorming works best when you follow a few key rules inspired by IDEO's design thinking. 1. Think visually. Use whiteboards, sticky notes, and sketches to make ideas tangible and visible to everyone. 2. Defer judgment. Suspend criticism and accept all ideas, even the wild ones. 3. Go for quantity. Set goals for the number of ideas. Aim high. 4. One conversation at a time. Listen as much as you talk and keep the discussion focused. And 5. Stay on topic. Avoid distractions and tangents, but don't be afraid to capture off-topic ideas in a parking lot for later. During the pandemic, we adapted these techniques to virtual environments, using digital whiteboards, Trello, Slack, and Zoom to keep the creative flowing even when we couldn't be in the same room. Why 3 ideas? After a good brainstorming session, you'll have a wall full of ideas. But how do you choose? Narrowing down to 3 top solutions gives you enough variety to test different approaches without getting overwhelmed. My dad always insisted on 3 solutions. Whether we were solving a family problem or inventing a new product, it's a good rule of thumb. 3 options give you flexibility, a backup plan, and a way to compare and refine. Innovator in Focus, Aris Persidis, PhD. Dr. Aris Persidis, co-founder of BioVista, is a great example of idea generation. He and his brother used artificial intelligence to match existing drugs to new diseases, leading to new treatments for conditions like Parkinson's. Their process involved generating lots of ideas, then rigorously evaluating them based on customer needs, pharmaceutical companies, and patients. Aris emphasizes the importance of divorcing yourself from confirmation bias and letting the market and customer feedback guide your choices. Key takeaways: 1 great innovation starts with at least 3 good ideas. Use structured methods like big idea vignettes, storyboards, and user experience roadmaps to generate and refine ideas. Keep the customer's perspective at the center of your creative process. Brainstorming is a powerful group tool. Follow the rules to unlock your team's creativity. Narrow down to 3 top solutions for testing and development. And stay open, stay curious, and let the process guide you to the best ideas. That's how you move from a blank whiteboard to real impactful innovation. Chapter 3. We're rooting for your MVP. Let me take you behind the scenes of a real MVP moment, one that didn't go as planned. Picture this. I'm standing on a stage in a chilly, cavernous hotel conference room in Indianapolis, facing 71 clients from 17 global companies. They're here for a live demo and user experience workshop of our new software's minimum viable product, MVP. There's a problem. The network in India where our live environment is hosted is down. The audience is restless. Some are annoyed, and I'm feeling the pressure. I apologized, explained the delay, and promised we'd get things back on track. But as the minutes ticked by, the tension grew. Some clients, like Dave and Alan, were openly frustrated, questioning whether the MVP even had enough features to warrant this meeting. I reminded them that the goal was to test the basics, logging in, navigating, and entering data before adding more bells and whistles. Still, I knew we needed a plan B. So we improvised. My team set up demo stations with preloaded versions of the software and storyboards. We broke the big group into smaller ones, rotating them through the hands-on demos and feedback sessions. It wasn't what we'd planned, but it worked. People engaged, shared ideas, and by the time the network came back online, the energy in the room had shifted. We even got to show off a few extra features, and the clients left feeling heard and involved. We took their feedback, made improvements, and launched the first version of the product that spring. What is an MVP and why use it? So let's talk about what an MVP really is. In sports, MVP means most valuable player, but in innovation, it stands for minimum viable product. The concept, popularized by Eric Rice in Lean Startup, is simple. Build the smallest, simplest version of your product that solves the core problem. Get it into customers' hands quickly and use their feedback to iterate and improve it. The MVP is about learning fast, minimizing risk, and making sure you're building something people actually want. Take Zappos, for example. Founder Nick Swimham started with a basic website where people could order shoes. Behind the scenes, he was buying shoes from local stores and shipping them himself. Only after proving people would buy shoes online did he invest in automating the business. Or look at Instacart, which started as a simple iPhone app. The founders did the shopping and deliveries themselves before building out the full platform. Etsy, too, began as a bare-bones site, letting crafters sell their goods before investing in a more robust marketplace. The MVP approach isn't just for software. At Princeton, I worked with 3 postdoc engineers who wanted to make healthier cooking easier. Their MVP, a robotic arm that could chop onions and celery, 2 of the most annoying veggies to prep. They built a prototype, tested it with students and local chefs, and even got Blue Apron to try it out. The feedback helped them refine the product, and while they eventually moved on to other careers, they learned invaluable lessons about innovation. Types of MVPs. There is no one-size-fits-all MVP, but here are some common types. Fast cycle sketch tests. Use paper or whiteboards to sketch out your idea and test it with users before building anything. Front door tests. Pitch your idea simply and see if customers show interest, like a landing page asking for emails. Back-end tests. Manually fulfill orders behind the scenes as Zappo did. End-to-end tests. Simulate the full experience, combining front and back-end tests. Dry wallet test. Test payment flows without actually charging customers. Judo test. Study and improve on competitors' products. Analog retro. Use physical materials, flyers, and booklets to gain feedback. Pop-up shop. Set up a temporary space to test your product or service in the real world. Testing can be as simple as creating a website, offering a service, or advertising a new feature to gauge interest. For example, one of my students tested a hangover beverage by creating a landing page and tracking clicks. Another tested a new powdered version of his drink by adding a coming soon link to his site and measuring interest. Choosing the right MVP. With several MVP options, how do you pick? Scott Cook of Intuit suggests writing down your assumptions, brainstorming metrics to test them, and then designing MVPs that generate the data you need. For instance, if you're launching a handcrafted carrot juice, you might test a street stand, a simple website for local delivery, or a full app for drone delivery. Start with the simplest, fastest, and cheapest option that will teach you the most. Customer feedback is the real gold. Don't wait until your MVP is perfect. Show early versions, slide decks, mock-ups, or interactive demos to real customers. Ask about their problems, not just your features. One of my students, Mike, learned more from showing a slide deck to doctors and pharma companies than he would have from a half-baked product. The key is to listen, iterate, and let customer needs guide your development. MVP takeaways. MVPs help you learn fast, minimize risk, and focus on what matters most to customers. They're not just for startups. Big companies use them too, especially for high-risk projects. The MVP is about solving a real problem, not building every possible feature. Get feedback early and often, and don't be afraid to pivot. Innovator in Focus. Leslie Anser Novak, founder of Howda Designs. Leslie Novak's story is a perfect MVP example. She discovered a unique wooden canvas chair, refined it, and launched the Howda seat, Howda, which became a bestseller. Later, she created the Howda Hug for kids, which won awards and became standard in classrooms. Novak's lesson? Trust your gut, prototype extensively, and don't share your big idea until you've proven it's viable. She built her business step by step, always listening to feedback and scaling up with the right partners. In summary, your MVP is your innovation's first real test. It's not about perfection. It's about learning, adapting, and solving a real customer problem with the simplest, most effective solution you can build. Get it out there, get feedback, and keep moving. That's how you turn a good idea into a great product. Chapter 4. The Law of 100 Customers. They can't be wrong. Let me tell you about Jenna Ray, a senior at Princeton who stood in front of a room full of advisors, classmates, and her team ready to pitch her startup, Blue Catamaran, a luxury women's apparel e-tailer. Jenna was polished and confident, her presentation deck queued up with slides introducing personas like Emma, Anisha, and Dara, stylish, globe-trotting, purpose-driven women who inspired the brand's designs. Jenna's vision was to give customers not just clothes, but an experience that spoke to their inner adventurer. But as she wrapped up her pitch, I had to pause her. The Innovation Accelerator program at Princeton, where Jenna was presenting, is all about immersing students in a real process of launching a startup. And that means doing the hard work of customer research. By week 4, students are supposed to have interviewed at least 25 prospective customers with their MVP. In Jenna's case, a mock website with sample outfits. When I asked Jenna about her customer interviews, she admitted she hadn't done any yet. She'd been busy building the website and talking to designers at Tory Burch, convinced she already knew her target customer. This is a classic startup trap, falling in love with your own idea and assuming you know your audience. Jenna's personas were vivid, but they were based on friends, not real customer data. I had to remind her and the whole class that the assignment was to interview 100 customers by week 6. Why? Because you can't build a business on assumptions. You need to get out there and talk to real people, learn what they want, and find out if they'll actually pay for your product. Why customer research matters. Customer research isn't just about focus groups and surveys. It's about truly understanding your customers, knowing their pain points, unmet needs, and aspirations so well that you can think like they do. Jenna's team had the right idea with personas, but without real interviews, those personas were just wishful thinking. The goal of customer research is to answer the big questions. Will your target customer pay $250 for a whimsical, expressive outfit? Will she trust an online experience to deliver the fashion statement she craves? If Jenna had interviewed even 25 real women, she would have learned that while her audience loved the blue catamaran vibe, most weren't ready to drop that kind of money except for special occasions. Real feedback is what separates a good idea from a viable business. This isn't just a lesson for students. Big companies make the same mistake, talking to themselves in echo chambers and convincing themselves they have a great idea without ever systematically listening to customers. That's how entire industries get disrupted. U.S. railroads, taxis, and cable TV all lost ground because they failed to adapt to changing customer needs. Meanwhile, companies like Apple thrive by getting close to their customers, sometimes even anticipating needs customers don't know they have. The power of Voice of the Customer, VOC research. Voice of the Customer research is about capturing what customers really want and need. Apple is a master at this, using surveys and self-ethnography to understand how people use their products. Steve Jobs famously said, "Get closer than ever to your customers, so close that you tell them what they need well before they realize it themselves." That's how the iPhone camera was born, not from a focus group, but from deep customer insight. VOC research helps you visualize the gap between what customers expect and what they actually experience. Companies that do this well see much higher revenue growth because they're constantly engaging with customers and improving the experience. So why do I insist on 100 customer interviews? It's not just an arbitrary number. You need a diverse, statistically significant sample to get a true cross-section of perspectives. This means talking to people of different ages, backgrounds, and geographies, using a mix of interviews, surveys, and even social media. Investors look for this kind of robust research before they'll put money into your idea. And the most important insight often comes from that 100th interview. I've seen it in my own work, like when I was CEO of a diagnostics company, and the final interview with a pharma research head led to a breakthrough MVP pilot. If I'd stopped at 99, I would have missed it. A real-world example, gene therapy for eye disease. I once consulted for a biotech startup developing gene therapy for wet macular degeneration, a disease that causes blindness. We interviewed 100 eye doctors across North America, Europe, China, and Japan, asking about their practices, challenges, and openness to new therapies. The research revealed that early-stage patients were the best target for the new treatment, not end-stage patients as initially thought. This insight shaped the company's clinical trial strategy and ultimately led them to pivot to a different eye disease where the need was greater. The 6 best Voice of the Customer questions. When you're doing VOC research, focus on these 6 areas. Who is the customer and what work do they do? What is the current state of their business or life? What are their pain points or unmet needs? How big is the problem? Can you measure its impact? What solutions have they tried and what were the results? What do they think about your solution? Will they use it and in what context? How to find 100 customers. Finding 100 customers isn't easy, but it's doable. Here are some approaches. Full-service research firms. Expensive but thorough. Great for big budgets and tight timelines. Self-service research agencies. You do the interviews, they provide the contacts. Lists. Buy lists of potential customers and reach out directly. In-house market research. Use your own team and social media to recruit interviewees. Crowdsourcing. Platforms like Kickstarter let you test ideas and get feedback from early adopters. And LinkedIn and Facebook. Use keywords to find and connect with your target audience, then ask for referrals to expand your network. Innovator in focus. Spencer Rascoff, co-founder of Zillow. Spencer Rascoff, after selling Hotwire, launched Zillow to bring transparency to home values. He and his team took customer research seriously, creating personas like Beth the buyer and Alan the agent based on dozens of real interviews. This research led them to pivot Zillow's business model to address the pain point of home sellers, not just buyers and agents. Later, customer feedback inspired Zillow to buy and resell homes directly, a move that was successful for a time, but also a reminder that execution matters as much as strategy. Spencer's advice? Get multiple perspectives, talk to customers constantly, and be fearless in making strategic decisions. You never know which conversation will give you the insight that changes everything. In summary, don't fall in love with your idea. Fall in love with your customer's problem. Talk to 100 real people, listen deeply, and let their feedback guide your innovation. That's how you build something people actually want, and that's the law of 100 customers. Chapter 5. Law-abiding innovators must be ready to pivot at any point in the process. Let's talk about one of the most important and sometimes nerve-wracking truths in innovation. You have to be ready to pivot, and you have to be ready to do it at any point in the process. Let me show you what that looks like in the real world, starting with the story of Silvana Sinha, founder and CEO of Prava Health in Bangladesh. The power of the pivot, the Prava Health story. Silvana Sinha is a force, impeccably professional, highly educated, and determined to transform healthcare in Bangladesh after a personal family crisis exposed the system's deep flaws. She launched Prava Health in 2018, offering integrated outpatient clinics and soon after digital health services. The company was growing fast, but then COVID-19 hit. Suddenly, patients couldn't come to clinics, and Prava's telehealth wasn't fully ready. With a subscription model and cash flow at risk, Sinha faced a make-or-break moment. She didn't freeze, she pivoted fast. Prava rolled out telehealth in April 2020, and by May, they became the first private lab in Bangladesh approved for COVID testing. Call volume skyrocketed, and the company turned a crisis into an opportunity, converting COVID test patients into long-term customers. By the time Sinha spoke to my Columbia Business School class, Prava had helped 300 corporations with virtual healthcare, processed 56,000 COVID tests, and grown its patient base from 35,000 to 135,000 in just 8 months. Shortly after, Sinha secured $10 million in private investment. That's the power of a well-executed pivot. The pandemic, a global pivot. COVID-19 forced everyone, businesses, schools, families, to rethink everything. Retailers and restaurants shifted to curbside service, companies like IBM embraced remote work, and even the way we interact with colleagues and customers changed overnight. Some companies like Fictive used the crisis to expand into new markets such as healthcare by leveraging their digital manufacturing ecosystem to source and distribute critical medical parts. Their pivot not only helped during the crisis, but also opened up a whole new, fast-growing business segment. What is a pivot and why does it matter? A pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision, or sometimes a realignment to get back to your vision. The path to success is rarely straight. History is full of great pivots. Cornelius Vanderbilt moved from steamships to railroad. Wrigley switched from baking powder to chewing gum. Odeo became Twitter. YouTube started as a dating site before becoming the world's first video-sharing giant. And Airbnb went from renting air mattresses to revolutionizing travel. Top reasons to pivot. So when should you pivot? Here are 5 classic signals. Customers aren't buying as expected. Maybe your forecasts were too optimistic, or the market shifted. Listen to the data and feedback. 2. Competitors are outpacing you. If your rivals are growing and you're not, it's time to reassess your market fit and customer focus. 3. Financials are underperforming. If sales and revenue consistently fall short, dig into the why and be ready to change course. 4. Channel or strategic partners aren't engaged. If partners like Amazon lose interest, it's a sign your product or marketing needs a rethink. And 5, external constraints. Sometimes it's out of your control, like a pandemic or a supply chain crisis. The key is to adapt quickly. How to pivot successfully. The best pivots come from listening to your customers. Yes, all 100 of them. Keep a catalog of feedback, especially the negative stuff. Ask tough questions. What don't you like? What would make this better? If we changed X, would you use it? Sometimes the pivot is realignment. Like Mountain Guitars, which started as a travel guitar for campers, but found its real market among parents and music teachers looking for a durable, kid-friendly instrument. Don't get stuck in the status quo. It's easy to keep pushing a product you've invested in, hoping things will turn around. But as the misattributed Einstein quote goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If the market isn't responding, be bold, pivot. For example, I worked with a startup that created a smart deodorant dispenser. Kickstarter backers loved it, but the broader market didn't want to pay $35 for a fancy dispenser. Instead of giving up, the team pivoted to use their technology for dispensing topical medications, where precise dosing really mattered. The new focus led to a partnership with a dermatology brand. How to pivot without losing your team or stakeholders. Clarity and communication are everything. Explain why you're pivoting, how you'll do it, and what the new plan is. Keep everyone in the loop, and once you set a new course, stick to it. Investors and teams need to see you're committed and confident. Focus on the big picture. Craft a broad narrative that allows for flexibility. Netflix is a great example. Reed Hastings started with DVDs by mail, but always had his eye on streaming. The company's purpose, the best home video viewing for everyone, allowed for evolution as technology changed. Move quickly and decisively. When you decide to pivot, don't drag your feet. The Muscular Dystrophy Association, for example, quickly shifted from in-person fundraisers to a virtual telethon hosted by Kevin Hart during the pandemic, raising over $10.5 million and transforming their approach to fundraising. Avoid common pivot pitfalls. Timing, execution, and communications are key. Magic Leap, for instance, confused customers and partners by pivoting from consumer VR to military contracts, then to education and healthcare without clear messaging. Another example, two fintech companies started with similar ideas, but only the one that stayed true to its mission and communicated well survived. 6 famous pivots. Nintendo, from cards and ramen to video games. Play-Doh, from wall cleaner to modeling clay. Starbucks, from selling beans to brewing coffeehouse experiences. Instagram, from a check-in app to a photo-sharing giant. Airbnb, from air mattresses to a global travel platform. And YouTube, from video dating to the world's video sharing site. Innovator in Focus, Silvana Q. Sinha, Prava Health. Silvana Sinha's journey is a masterclass in the art of the pivot. Inspired by her mother's medical emergency in Bangladesh, she founded Prava Health to bring quality, patient-driven healthcare to a country in desperate need. The pandemic forced her to pivot quickly, launching virtual care, COVID testing, and new tech products almost overnight. Her story is a reminder, you don't need to have a background in an industry to change it. Dive in, learn, and be ready to adapt. Her advice, don't let others define your dreams. If you're underestimated, use it as fuel. And when things get tough, keep going. Sometimes that's all you can do. Pivoting isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of resilience, agility, and a deep commitment to solving real customer problems. Stay close to your customers, listen to the market, communicate clearly, and don't be afraid to change course. The most successful innovators are the ones who know when and how to pivot. So we'll pick up in part 2 next time. That's where we'll leave it. I think this is a great book. The Innovation Mindset by Lorraine Marchand. Thanks for joining. That's a wrap.